Thank you all so much for joining today. My name is Kyrena Wright. I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the Associate Director of Student Engagement in Undergraduate Student Life for Columbia College and Columbia Engineering. If this is your first time you are joining one of our webinar series, welcome to Columbia. And if you have tuned into others, we hope you have found them beneficial as you prepare to start your Columbia journey. This week kicks off our series about the Columbia community. Today, you will have a chance to hear from staff from undergraduate student life and students involved in various clubs, organizations, and leadership positions. I would also like to point out that this session includes closed captioning, which you can turn on using the toolbar at the bottom of your window. We ask that you utilize the Q&A function at the bottom to submit questions to our panelists. While we may not be able to answer all of them in the allocated time, we will get to as many of them as we can during the Q&A portion. So at this time, I'd like to welcome our panelists to the screen. Melinda, can you introduce yourself?
Thanks, Kyrena. Hi, I'm Melinda Aquino. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and I'm the Associate Dean of Multicultural Affairs.
Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. My name is Tara Hanna, and I'm the Executive Director of Residential Life and the Associate Dean in Undergraduate Student Life, and I use she, her, hers pronouns.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Lucas, and I'm the Executive Director of Student Engagement, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
Hi, all. I'm Matt. I'm a rising junior in Columbia College, studying Middle East Studies and Film and Media Studies, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
Hi, everyone. I'm Benjamin Sango. I'm a rising junior in Columbia College studying Economics and Chemistry, and my pronouns are he, him, his.
Good afternoon, morning, afternoon, evening, night, wherever you are. My name is Christian Palmares. I'm a junior at Columbia College studying American Studies and English, and I use he, him, his pronouns.
Hi, I'm Alina. I'm an incoming senior and I study computer science in Columbia Engineering, and I use she, her, hers pronouns. And then also extra fact is that I am currently the Engineering Student Council President.
Thank you. Our first question goes to staff from undergraduate student life. Can you each share a little bit about your unit and ways students can find community?
So I guess I'll start us off again, Melinda Aquino from Multicultural Affairs. And in thinking the work that we do, not just in Multicultural Affairs, but across undergraduate student life and across Columbia University, when we think about community, it starts with understanding who's in our community. And with that is all the identities and experiences that each student and member of the community brings. So one of the roles that Multicultural has in relationship and in partnership with students and staff is creating affirming and inclusive spaces, both formal and informal, and ensuring that the support and shared accountability is there for all of our students. One of the focuses that we have is around creating spaces of inclusion and belonging. We also have programs that focus on diversity, equity, and social justice. For those who are wanting to find connections, we start thinking about starting in self. What are the shared experiences that we want to connect with each other on? And we have a number of programs and spaces that we help students find those connections and find those communities. One of them, if you're looking for mentorship, we have the Columbia Mentoring Initiative that focuses on both an intergenerational connection between incoming students with returning students with shared identity and experiences, and thinking about those same areas of connection around identity with all students and alumni. We also have multiple programs, of which there's a more in-depth conversations next week in a series of webinars that focus on our at Columbia areas. So Fly at Columbia, which is first generation and or low income, students of color at Columbia, international at Columbia, as well as LGBTQ at Columbia. Each one of those create intimate spaces where students can both explore their own identities and learn about the diversity and intersectionality within the identities that they may share with others. Other ways that people can connect around community and their identities is learning about others. And so we like to facilitate very intentional spaces where people can build allyship, challenge each other's ideas, and really engage in difficult dialogue in thinking about why there are rifts between communities. So we have spaces like Global Ambassadors Program that connect international students with US students to think about current events and, again, difficult dialogues. We have programs like Sankofa SEDIC, which again you can apply to in your first month of being at Columbia, that connect all students around issues exploring connections of struggle, survival, and justice among Black and Jewish communities. And we have a living learning community called within the Intercultural Resource Center, which is one of 2 spaces that we oversee that are that you can apply to starting in your second year, that focuses on social justice. The other part about being a community is making sure that everybody's accountable to each other in creating inclusive and welcoming spaces. And the way that we do that is offering a variety of workshops of programming, including one that all incoming first-year students will be engaging in called Under One Roof. So more to come on that. And also when there are incursions to folks' identities, we want to make sure that people are supported in that, and really thinking about what is the harm to all of us when that happens, and how can we restore the community. So we utilize restorative justice practices in our bias response. And lastly, I just wanted to highlight, as first-year students, we want to make sure that this is a community that you want it to be. And so we have advisory boards for each of those at Columbia areas, and we welcome you to apply. So one of many ways to get involved in our office and ways to find yourself in our community.
So as mentioned, my name is Tara Hanna and I oversee residential life. So for those of you that are living on campus, I want to share a little bit of information about what that might look like in community building within the residence hall. So just to let you know, we have 20 staff that actually live on campus as well. So we actually live within the residence halls and are actually part of the community as well. So you'll see me around, you'll see other members of the Res Life team around in your buildings. They'll be there. And we also have resident advisors on campus, or RAs. And this fall we'll have about 100 RAs on campus, and you'll be hearing from them right after you move in. You'll attend a first floor meeting virtually, which you'll hear a little bit about the residence hall that you're living in, about what's going to be going on in the Columbia community on campus, in the residential community. And RAs will also be reaching out to you to meet individually so that they can get to know you better, and hear more from you about how you would like to build community in the residence hall that you're living in. So I hope that many of you consider being RAs in the future, and that's one way to definitely get involved as well. Additionally, in each residence halls, we have a hall council, which is a way for residents to get involved in their hall community, meet other residents, and to program and advocate for the community that you live in. So there's a hall council in each residence hall that you would be able to be a part of. And there's an umbrella organization called ROLO, which is our residence hall leadership organization, which is kind of an umbrella organization for all the hall councils that kind of oversees all of campus and does some programming and advocacy to make improvements for residential living across campus. Other opportunities within residential life, we have special interest communities. So as Dean Aquino was mentioning, the Intercultural Resource Center, there is also about 15 other identity or interest-based special interest communities that you would be able to live in beginning your sophomore year. And they kind of range in terms of interest or identity that we have available. And if we don't have one available that you would like to live in, there is also opportunities throughout the years for you to create your own special interest community. So that's something that you might be able to do in the future. And additionally, residential life also is inclusive of fraternity and sorority life. And we have 27 fraternities and sororities on campus. Some of them do have a live-in component and have brownstones on campus. About 10 of them have brownstones that members of the respective fraternity and sororities live in. But certainly there's a very vibrant community, fraternity and sorority community outside of the living component as well, for people who don't live on campus. And just generally speaking, if you don't want to live in, you certainly don't have to, but are other great ways to get involved and where a lot of students find community on campus.
Great, I'm happy to share a little bit about student engagement. Again, my name is Josh and I oversee our student engagement office. And the staff within student engagement are here to really support your co-curricular involvement through clubs and organizations, as well as we offer a variety of community building programming. Things may look a little different this year, as we all know, but I do want to give you a little overview of what you can expect. One of the first ways that you're going to start to build community is through the new student orientation program, and in particular through your orientation leader, which we call OL, and your OL group. So your orientation leader will be or should have already reached out to you in regards to scheduling your first OL group meeting, which is actually going to take place prior to the start of orientation. And then they'll also be offering to meet with you individually before orientation begins as well. So I really encourage you during that first orientation leader group meeting, if you find someone that you make a connection with, reach out to them. Don't be afraid to start building community before you even get to campus. Some other things that I just wanted to kind of bring your awareness to is, sorry, I had some notes. We advise a ton of student organizations. We're already getting some questions about student organizations in the Q&A function as well. So I encourage you now, before the start of orientation beginning, is you can review the clubs and organizations on our websites. And so you can take a look there to see what all we have to offer, and really encourage you, try something new, branch out, or if it's something that you've done in high school and you want to continue, that's okay too. We will be offering a variety of community building programs throughout the fall semester and spring as well. Majority of them will be virtual, but we are looking to do some in-person activities and events depending on our city and state guidelines. You'll also get to participate in Voting Week, which is the last week of September, where our office partners with clubs and organizations to host a week-long series of workshops, speakers, and registering to vote. Another area within our office that we oversee is our radio station, WKCR 89.9 FM, and you can stream that online anywhere, and they operate 24/7, 365 days a week, so you can listen to it no matter where you're at. So with that, I welcome you to Columbia, and we can't wait to meet you all coming soon. And so with that, since I'm still speaking, I'm actually going to turn it over to our students. And we would just like you all to share a little bit about yourselves, and if you can share how you have found community at Columbia and a little bit about your Columbia experience.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, once again, I'm Benji, and about my process of finding community at Columbia, my first experience with a Columbia student was through the International Buddy Program, where international students who are first years are paired with upperclassmen buddies. And I got, luckily, an upperclassman in my major to whom I was able to ask various questions about campus life to academic life, which was very helpful for me in preparing to come to campus. And also, I participated in the International Student Orientation Program, which is a pre-orientation program for international students, where I got a chance to meet international freshmen and made a lot of friends who I'm still friends with now. And I was able to meet more international students through various events which happened throughout the semester by the International Columbia office. And some clubs I joined in my first year was definitely the African Dance Group and the African Student Association, where I was able to meet various students who shared my African identity and also to create community. And one major way I made community as well was like on my floor. I lived in a Hartley suite in my first year, where we had a very close community with freshmen and various upperclassmen, which was very great. I was able to meet people from all classes, which was great for me. And as I finished my first year, I felt like my priorities changed, and I had to drop out of my dance group, and I had to pursue some research opportunities, which I definitely feel like it was a good decision I made, and it has really helped me a lot. And to end this, I've been a part of the Global Recruitment Committee under the admissions office, where we always get a chance to write postcards to students, be on panels for international students, also get to reach out to new international students and talk to them and share our experiences with them. So all these opportunities have been very great ways for me to find a community at Columbia and be happy. Yeah.
Hi, everyone. My name is Christian, as I mentioned before. So finding a community in any place, I think, can be a big struggle. And I was not the exception to that struggle at Columbia. And for me, that process is really still ongoing, and finding all the right elements is a long journey that I think is a lot of fun, and you get to learn a lot from, especially about yourself. So I first entered Columbia and participated in Co-op and NSOP, which were both really enlightening and fun experiences with great groups of people. But it was a certain collection of people that just didn't have a reason to connect after the experience besides monthly check-ins and like casually getting to be each other's friends. And so I was looking for more profound relationships and tried to seek that in different groups I was involved with back in high school. So I was in, class president and all that student government jazz back in high school. And I decided I should run again for class representative. And I did so, and I lost very badly. I got less votes than the 3 options to abstain. So that was a very humbling experience. And then I didn't get into a bunch of different clubs related to related to like debating different things that I had been interested in. And I put myself into like political activism clubs that I was passionate about, but I started to realize that in high school, we were kind of around the same group of people that some people can be. In college, you have the great opportunity to really surround yourself with your crowd and like find the people that you just jazz with. So flash forward a semester, and I auditioned and got into the varsity show, whose jacket or sweater I'm now wearing. And the varsity show is a devised musical comedy about Columbia, written, directed, choreographed, composed completely by your peers. And the cast and the whole group became my family essentially, and I still cherish those friendships to today. And basically in my spring semester, I made this big pivot into theater and comedy, the theater and comedy scene at Columbia. And I fell in love with those communities and just found myself enjoying college so much more now that I kind of had let go of who I was in high school and pushed myself to be kind of uncomfortable in this new space with people I trusted and I believe really cared about me. And so beyond theater, I've also become a leader with the Columbia Outdoor Orientation Program, and I led groups with co-op, sharing that experience in the woods that I found so helpful and grounding before I started my school year. I'm now the hiking coordinator of co-op, which while I'm really deeply disappointed you were all not able to attend and experience, is still a program where you can become a leader and join the community in your spring semester. So yeah, that's been my journey so far.
I guess for me, I actually joined 2 clubs in my first year. So the first one was Chinese Students Club, and the second one was Engineering Student Council. And so for CSC, Chinese Students Club, it was really nice to see like upperclassmen and to try to get to know people with a similar background as me. And so that was like a cool place to be and to find my community there. And then for ESC, I actually found a lot of people I really respected there, and I got to talk to a lot of upperclassmen as well. And that was like a valuable resource for me because as like a first year, you don't really know anything, but you get to talk to people who are older than you and who have gone through the same experiences. And so both clubs have been super invaluable to my experience and my community there. And also, I really agree with Christian about the whole like finding your own vibe and finding your own group. That kind of takes a while. It could take a while. And so for me, the first thing I did for Columbia was the Q program, which is also a pre-orientation program. And there I didn't find like a group of people I really vibed with. And so even though that was the first group I really experienced, it was fine because like for the first year, it was just like a lot of exploring, finding new friends. And so joining those 2 clubs actually gave me the community I needed. And then also, just specifically for engineering, something really cool was that I found my closest group of friends was in my multivariable calculus class. And so that's something you have to take as the C's core. And a lot of times we were just like bonding together over P sets and figuring out how to like go through this calculus together. And that was super, super nice for us because we became really close and are still talking today. And yeah, we're super close. So that's something C specific, I guess, but that's my community. But yeah.
Hi. I think for me, finding community at Columbia involved learning about all the different places and avenues where community can be found at our school. For example, for some people, the activities fair at the beginning of the year is like a great place to find community because there are just so many options there. But it can also be a bit overwhelming, thinking about how many clubs you want to join and how you're going to fit everything into your schedule and whether or not you should do things similar to how you did them in high school or find something new and what those new things should be, etc. So for me, I really found community and lasting friendships through the people who I lived with on my floor, and not through the traditional club experience. It was really through the people I met living in John Jay Hall. And I realized that more so than any club representative could, that my friends would really guide me into new experiences and groups and organizations, etc. So much so that the group that I ultimately became very involved with, Rolo, the Residence Hall Leadership Organization that was mentioned earlier, I discovered that actually through one of my best friends, not through any sort of like club fair or formal thing. So I guess the process, as others have said, is it takes some time to find your group, but don't be afraid to trust people that you meet, to trust your friends, to follow others in the community as they try out new things, and try each group out for yourself. And you never know where you'll find an experience or a group that will help shape your college experience. So yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Would you be able to tell us a little bit more about your experience with Rolo, and specifically how first-year students can get involved in their own residence hall councils?
Yes, absolutely. I think my experience with Rolo was sort of similar to Christian's experience running for student council. As I said, one of my best friends lived on the same floor as me in John Jay Hall. And it was the beginning of the year, and he said, hey, I really want to run for hall council president. Why don't you come? You'll run on the same ticket as me. We'll do, you'll be my vice president. It's going to be great. It's going to be easy. We're going to win. And we lost very badly. We came in second, but by quite a large margin. And I was like, oh, great. This didn't work out. What's next? And then about a week later, representatives from Rolo, which again, is that sort of umbrella organization that manages all the hall councils, said, hey, 2 people dropped out of the John Jay Hall Council. Would you guys be interested in filling their positions? And we said yes. So sort of the rest is history. And I joined hall council there. And 2 years later, my friend who was like the one who was like pulling me into this, and I was like, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't really want to do this. He ended up leaving hall council, and I ended up staying on, and now I'm the executive director for all of Rolo, all of Residence Hall Leadership Organizations, which means I oversee every hall council on the Columbia community, from the first year halls like John Jay or Carmen, to mixed year halls, to senior only halls like East Campus or others. What I would say is, if anyone here is interested in or passionate about community advocacy and really working to come up with solutions to the common problems that you'll encounter in the place that you'll live, especially during this time. I mean, you're going to want to be building community. You're going to be wanting to meet new people in this time where contact might be a little limited, and figuring out how to do that. Please look out for Rolo's informational sessions early in the year. Come to our late night activities. We're going to be throwing late night activities throughout the NSOP week. You'll see it on your NSOP calendar, and they should be a lot of fun, I hope. And yeah, reach out to us, columbiarolo.com, or send me an email, whatever, get involved, ask me questions. So yeah, hope that that's a good way for you to find some community and to get you interested in student leadership.
Thanks, Matt. That was great. Benji, actually, I have a question for you. You have been one of our amazing student coordinators for the International Student Orientation Program. Now, this is your 2nd year in that position. Can you share a little bit more about your experience in ISOP and why you got involved with it? And I think, as we heard, there's different experiences and connections that people make during orientation. Could you also reflect on, your experience and how you made those connections and how you try to continue them beyond orientation week?
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I participated in ISOP in my freshman year, and it was definitely a great opportunity for me to meet new people and understand that I was not the only one going through like the process of adjusting to a new country and culture. So I decided to be in the leadership of the ISOP because of the positive impact it had on my transition to Columbia. And I wanted new international students to have this great experience I had at the beginning of my time at Columbia. So I decided to be a student coordinator because as a participant of the program in the previous year, I thought I had first-hand experience as a member of the audience of the program. And I thought it would be great to be directly involved in the program planning and also to help make improvements to the program from the previous year. So talking about like, connections I made from my ISOP experience was definitely one was with my fellow freshmen at that time, and also with my supervisor as I worked as a coordinator. And I think it has been a great relationship we've had from there. And I'm glad I'm working with her this summer as well, making sure international students have like the best experience as well, even though we are not in the best situation as possible. And I also made connections with the orientation leaders and also head orientation leaders who were mostly upperclassmen and also my careers as well. And it was a great way to meet people, learn from them, and also like have people I could always go to ask questions and all that. So I think it was very good for me. And lastly, I'll definitely talk about the professional experiences I've gained from my time being the student coordinator for ISOP, which definitely has been very useful to me. I've gained various skills, both hard skills and soft skills, which have been really useful to me. And I wasn't surprised that like in the most recent interview I had for like an internship for my junior summer, like my experience during ISOP as a coordinator was the main topic of the interview. So I believe we should try to find communities, try to get into leadership opportunities, and I think they help us develop ourselves personally and also professionally. Yeah.
Thanks, Benji. I would now like to ask Christian, you had mentioned, your involvement in the varsity show and performing arts community. Can you just tell us a little bit about your experience in the performing arts community at Columbia? How did you get involved in clubs? What does the time commitment kind of look like? And kind of how do auditions typically work?
Sure, Josh. I touched on a bit of my experience with theater and performing arts earlier, but there are a variety of different clubs and avenues to enter theater at Columbia, and with very different levels of commitment depending on your unique interests. So the typical way of entry depends on, again, your specific goals within theater. If you're an actor, you'll be auditioning at the beginning of the semester, and I recommend that you audition with as many different organizations as you're interested in. You can find, as Josh mentioned, the full list of Columbia organizations on the Columbia Undergraduate Student Life website, and just look under performing arts. They're all themed by, or grouped by categories and themes. So I would go to that website, follow each of those Facebook groups that you're interested in, their websites, just figure out the specific details of their audition process. And again, I would also recommend that you look at into those opportunities as soon as NTOP begins, because that process usually starts really early in the semester. And if I put my director hat on, because I'll be working with the Columbia Musical Theater Society in the fall, directing one of their shows, I can confirm and affirm to all of you how important first years are to the performing arts community. But the disconnect is always that many people weren't aware how early auditions were held, in that because of that, they miss the opportunity and then have to wait to the next semester to get involved. For non-actors, there is the same sort of process for each production and group, but instead of singing and dancing, obviously you're conducting more of an interview with the production team of the show. And the unique thing about all the production teams is they're basically comprised of your peers, which means that if you're interested in putting on your own show, you can do so, at the end of the semester. And so while the language I've used has focused mostly with theater, there's the same process and kind of idea for the comedy scene, a cappella, dance groups. They all have that same outline of like auditioning at the beginning of the semester, joining, and becoming extremely close and building a wonderful community and organization where students just find their families. In terms of time management though, student productions can be a lot. They're Monday through Thursday, most of them 8 to 11, and then Saturdays for a lot of them also 11 to 5. It can be, again, a big time consumer. So it's really important to talk to the producers of the show you're interested in before joining, and finding out what the specific time commitments you should expect to be beforehand. Of course, I believe that time you commit is really valuable and deeply worthwhile, because you're establishing these connections and just becoming best friends of everyone on their team. But time management is just key to succeeding at Columbia, because there's so many things I want to do, and I'm sure there are so many things you're all going to want to try, but the 4 years just like fly by. And so figuring out your priorities and planning your year beforehand, so like trying to figure out your classes, your job and internships, just getting that all sort of situated is vital. But I think if you really take out a calendar and just like put everything down, you'll have a better chance of enjoying yourself, especially if you make sure that there's enough time for you to just breathe and live in the space that is Columbia. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to just give yourself time to like exercise or meditate or just be alone with your thoughts, because like life is chaotic. And I think the more you plan out your priorities now, the better chance they'll stick after college and the happier you'll be throughout your time at Columbia.
Great, thanks, Christian. Alina, I'll turn to you. I know you had mentioned you're in the Engineering Student Council and President, and I know that as well since I'm your advisor. But can you maybe tell us just a little bit about your involvement in Engineering Student Council and just kind of councils overall, and kind of what students that may be interested could expect if they decide to join? And there will be a session during orientation as well to learn more about councils.
Yeah, that's perfect. So basically, I'll talk a little bit about the campaign process because I think that's a little specific to Student Council, whether it be ESC or CCSC, Engineering Student Council, or Columbia College Student Council. And so for the campaign process, it's basically a week-long sort of thing where you're going around and talking to people and trying to figure out like what your platform is, or like how you can try to improve other students' lives through your position that you're running for. And so that's kind of a process that everyone who's running for goes through. But as Josh mentioned, there's an info session before where you actually get to know about what Student Council does. And so you get to see other people like-minded who are trying to run for it as well. And so that's actually a pretty fun process, to be honest, because you're actually meeting a lot of people, especially as a first year. And so I actually ran for class council as my first year. And so that was very fun because I got to know a lot more students in my class and to actually figure out like what backgrounds they came from, why you came to Columbia, a lot of like cool stuff like that. You get to know a lot of people. And so, yeah, that's basically like the whole process for running. And then in terms of like what the student council actually does or why you would want to maybe join, basically you would be the student advocate for a lot of issues that you might see. And so, for instance, like the COVID crisis, mediating that or figuring out what resources that students could probably use or probably have is probably a good idea of in student council and to actually like implement it. And then also just like normal things like housing and dining or academic affairs, financial aid, mental health, all these issues you have a hand in like trying to make it better for your fellow students. And so that's a really cool process because you get to work with people who also really care about these issues and to actually try to make a difference in some sort of small sense. And yeah, it's been a really rewarding process overall. And I really suggest that like you guys come to the info session and see what it's all about.
Great, thank you all for sharing. We'd now like to open it up to the Q&A portion of this webinar. So the first question we're gonna start with is, how do I find out about clubs and organizations?
I'm happy to take that question. Kyrena actually oversees student group programming within our office as well, so she would be well versed to answer this question too. But we have a activities day is what we call it here, which is our club fair. We are going to be offering a club fair, albeit it will be a virtual experience. So we're still working on what the format will be and how that will be conducted. But we'll definitely give everyone a chance to learn about clubs and organizations. The way that we're structured at Columbia in terms of the groups that we advise in our office, we oversee the activities board at Columbia, the student governing board, Inter-Greek Council as a part of the organizations that fall underneath undergraduate student life. But there are other clubs and organizations at the university that groups can or students can join as well. There's club sports out of athletics, community impact, which is service oriented out of university life. There's the governing board at Barnard, so Barnard student organizations. And for our activities day, we bring all of those kind of clubs together. So there will be a format for us and for you all to learn more about clubs and organizations. But if you ever have any questions, you know, all of the staff within undergraduate student life are advisors. Every student group has to have an advisor out of our office. So you can always reach out to us if there's a question that you want to reach out to a student organization. As Christian mentioned, the clubs and organizations are on our website. Each of them have a little description about them and then their contact information. So an email, a website, Facebook, that you can also check out to learn a little bit more about them. So yeah, you'll have that to look forward to. That typically takes place the first Friday of classes. We're still determining what that will look like, but be on the lookout for it soon.
Great, thank you, Josh. So our next question is, what is the best advice for meeting people in your first year? Matt, would you like to take this one?
Sure, or I'm sure other people will say stuff as well, but I would just say, like, I saw there were some other questions in the chat about like, how are you still going to get involved with community here at Columbia, even though you might be, not on campus, or how are you going to get involved with clubs, even though, they're not going to, be happening in person, at least for, the fall semester. I would just say that, like, don't stress about it too much, because as someone who does sit on the executive board of like an organization here at Columbia, we are very much thinking about, how to include everyone, especially given that, people won't be meeting in person and people will be all over the country and in different time zones. So we're all thinking about how to make it work. And if you take a week like NSOP, for example, there's going to be so much programming work that we can do virtually. You're going to be able to meet so many new people virtually. We're going to have fun games and events and community service work that we're already planning on. So I still think there are going to be so many opportunities for you to meet new people, even if you're not located on the Columbia campus. And we're scaling up, not down. We are thinking every day of so many new ways and more ways to build community with everyone and everyone's circumstances and situations, locations, time zones, everything. So I'm confident.
I could also add, before we continue, also the best piece of advice I ever got about meeting first years and like building friendships your first year is just say yes to things. And don't be afraid to reach out, because everyone wants to make friendships and like build connections, but no one wants to be the person to do it. So then you're just kind of awkwardly standing in NSOP, or like, even metaphorically, no one was really doing the work that it takes to build meaningful connections. So reach out to people, ask questions, like get to know each other. Like it's okay if not every person you meet is the person that's going to be like your best friend for the 4 years, but it takes going through a lot of different people and like getting to know them to find the right people. So.
Great, thank you. Tara, would you mind talking about Columbia 101 a little bit?
Sure. So beyond orientation, there is specific programming for all first-year students, and that will be available virtually regardless of where you are, so you'll be able to participate. And so it's a way for first-year students to connect with other first-year students, but also to learn more about the Columbia community and to attend some fun events with other first-year students as well. So there are going to be a range of programming through the Columbia 101 program throughout the fall semester that are really focused on a variety of things, whether they be on-campus resources or information about how to navigate New York City, how to navigate the Columbia community, but also just fun events to connect with other first years, regardless of where you are. So all of that will be virtual, so you'll have an opportunity to meet people in your year through that programming. So look out for emails and information about that once the academic year begins, and I hope that you attend some of those events.
Great, thank you, Tara. So our next question is, how do you suggest students that are learning completely remotely remain engaged at the Columbia community despite the distance? Melinda, would you like to start us off?
Sure, and I think it's touching on a little bit too in terms of how do you meet other first-year students. The one thing I'll say is there's not one right way to do it. I think just in hearing the experiences from all the students, there's different ways that people got connected, and even in the virtual format, there's no one right way. If you are looking for a more structured way to get connected outside of the classroom, I think there's mentoring programs, whether it be through the Columbia Mentoring Initiative that I mentioned, where it's more of an application process, and then there'll be structured weekly or bi-weekly meetings where you can connect around different experience, or specifically around like Friday chats for different at Columbia areas that talk about transition and people sharing the same experience. Most of our programs, if not all of our programs, for the fall semester at our multicultural fairs will be virtual, and I think that's similar. While there are some in-person ones, there most, if not, will have a hybrid kind of component to it to allow people who are completely off campus to be able to connect in. I know people who are planning programming, both student leaders as well as staff, are very conscious of time zones and offering, whether it be multiple offerings during a course of a day to meet people, or allowing for asynchronous connections. So that is it, having a forum where people can contribute thoughts and ideas and stay connected to each other, but allow people not, who will be able to participate in real time, still be part of conversations. So again, formal, more applications-based spaces can allow you more structured kind of bi-weekly formats. Open dialogue programs, whether it be through multicultural affairs or otherwise, or through student organizations, will allow planned times. And just knowing that there are multiple structures that are very mindful that people are both on campus and off and in various time zones will hopefully meet all of those different needs.
Great, thank you, Melinda. And I just want to remind our attendees that the Q&A function is at the bottom of your screen if you want to ask a question. Our next question is the audition and application process for performing arts groups, or even more broadly, groups that are a bit more competitive in nature in their application process, is it competitive? What does that process look like? Can you explain that a little bit more? So Christian, I'm going to pop this over to you.
Sure, happy to answer it. In terms of performing arts groups, there are a variety, again, a large number of organizations, and I think the majority of them offer opportunities for everyone to be a part of, like the 24-hour musical or the outdoor show of KCST, just to name a couple. But there are productions that are put on by each of these groups, and by the nature of most shows, there's a finite number of roles. And that being the case, that means there are going to be more people who audition and apply than who get a position or a spot. And while that's true, again, I don't think that means anyone gets, I don't think that should mean anyone should get left out, because there are so many different groups and so many different productions happening that ostensibly everyone should be able to have a spot or be able to find a community, a show that interests them, and that will welcome them on. Also, again, there's so many different roles that if you just want to be involved in performing arts, there's so many different places that they're happy to have you. The competitive processes are like a part of it, and learning to navigate that is a challenge, but it's one where you it's about self-improvement, but also just talking to people afterwards, and maybe talking about, like, when I didn't get into Columbia Debate Society, one of my best friends was someone I knew pretty well coming into Columbia, because she was my days on campus leader. I asked her about the process, and she was like, it just didn't work out for you this time. You can try again, obviously, next semester. Here are the notes. I wasn't in the room, but here are the notes of what they said. And like, that is probably the best thing you can do. But by not getting in, you can also figure out whether or not it's the right thing for you to do.
Great, thank you. So as many of you know, we've been navigating a virtual world since around mid-March. So do any of the students have a positive experience with the virtual club experience from the spring or even into the summer? What's it been like, and how have you remained engaged? Alina, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, that sounds good. So Ashley, last spring when we were moving out, it was quite a chaotic process. So I was actually very optional with all of the rest of the meetings. Especially because people were in different time zones and they're going through their own circumstances. So there was like no necessity for people to meet for club meetings. However, I will say that even when I made everything optional, everyone felt free, like they didn't have to come, everyone still came. Like for every club meeting, we always had really fun, productive discussions about things we wanted to do, things we wanted to change in relationship to like the club itself. Both ESC and CSC, actually. So it's cool because you see that like all the other students want to engage just as much as you do. And so even though everyone has moved virtual, and everything could be optional, everyone still puts themselves out there and actually tries to like keep that connection going. And especially with like joining that club and having consistent meetings every week, it's been really great because you get to actually like see them consistently for sure. And yeah, it's been a great experience actually. And then for summer, people still keep connected, and we're still doing club stuff because oftentimes it starts in the summer and everyone is still pretty chill. And yeah, it's been a better experience than I could have ever imagined.
Great, thank you. Christian, Matt, or Benji, do either of you have anything to add to that?
I would say like just in the way that a lot of stuff works at Columbia in terms of like student clubs and organizations, like a lot of the recruitment for next year happens at the end of the year. And by the end of the year, we had already gone virtual. So in terms of Rolo, like we had people who sort of just, ran for positions on our e-board, et cetera. And we actually, maybe didn't really know them that well yet. Just like, you might not know the people who you're coming into your groups with yet. And then we transitioned to online, and we had to think about how do we bring these people into our organization, given that we really don't know them super well. And they, as Alina was saying, they're in different time zones and they're all over, and it's going to be virtual, et cetera. And on a similar note, it worked really smoothly, and everyone showed up to every meeting, and we've had so much fun together. Part of running an organization is, having fun with people and building actually really strong, interpersonal relationships within the group, within the executive board. And we've had a great time doing that. Like we've been playing online poker together and board games and, just hanging out whenever we want to, and also getting a lot of work done. And we're still able to meet with university administrators and offices and other student groups. So, even though you will be new to this system has already experienced something similar to this. So, don't stress out about it too much.
Great, thank you. And so for our final question, is there any final piece of advice that we'd like to leave with our incoming students? So Benji, would you like to start us off with a final piece of advice?
Yeah, sure. So I would say definitely you would be like a freshman and you would want to get into everything on campus, and yeah, it's definitely fine. And if you don't feel like ready to get into everything, and it's like also fine. Just try to find where you fit very well, and you would realize that at the beginning you would try to get into so many clubs, but as the semester goes on, you would realize your workload in school and like various stuff you have to do, and that's when you get to identify clubs which mean so much to you, and that's when you decide what you want to do. So definitely go out, try out stuff, and find out what works best for you. Yeah.
Great, thank you. So that ends our webinar for today. So I want to thank all of our attendees for attending today's webinar, and hopefully this was beneficial as you prepare to come to Columbia in the fall. So thank you all.
Bye.